This is our social studies packet that we're continuing. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the United States Constitution. The first 10 amendments to the United States Constitutions are known as the Bill of Rights. They were created on September 25th, 1789, and put into effect on December 15th, 1791. They were made to help ease anti-federalists, people who were opposed to large governments in the United States. Anti mean oppose. Anti the federal government interfering in the 13 colonies. Remember, there were 13 colonies, right, that got their independence from Britain. So those 13 colonies are what we're discussing right now. They were made to help ease anti-federalists. They were made to help and ease anti-federalists, to help ease them, right? To help them kind of relax. People who are opposed to the large governments in the United States. The Bill of Rights guarantees certain freedoms and rights to every American citizen, as well as setting limits to the government's power judicially, which is a court. It also establishes that any power not stated in the Bill of Rights is left to the states to decide. So right now with the coronavirus situation, where each state decide if they're going to quarantine or not, it's not up to the president of the United States, it's up to the state. So when you hear they're going back and forth, oh, that's the state's job, oh, that's the federal job. No, the federal's job is to help, to assist, to provide funding, but the final decision to accept funding from the federal government or is those decisions are up to each individual state. Paragraph 2. The Bill of Rights were based heavily on earlier documents, such as the Virginia Declaration of Rights and the English Bill of Rights, which was in 1689. They were introduced on July 8, 1789, which is like 100 years later, by Representative James Madison. He proposed 9 amendments to the Constitution, one of the major ones being the limitation of the power of Congress. Before the United States Constitution was made, the original 13 states or 13 colonies were under the jurisdiction of the Articles of Confederation. Remember now, the Article of Confederation, that was when the first one, that was dealing with George Washington, right? Now, continuing, these were created by the Second Continental Congress and were put into place in 1781. So that means there was a First Continental Congress, which had to deal with George Washington getting involved from the first one. And the second one is when they had to refine the first one. The only issue with this was the government at that time was too weak to enforce things between states. The government, those United States, those colonies, the government was not strong. It wasn't powerful enough. They couldn't enforce. You know, it's like the federal couldn't go into each state and do enforcement, basically. So the Philadelphia Convention, which was a convention held in Philadelphia to discuss changes to the Articles of Confederation, right? They're discussing changes to that first article, was where the government would sit down and plan a stronger government. It took place from May 14th to September 17th, 1787. And the original purpose was to change the Articles of Confederation, change that first one, into something more manageable. By the end of the convention, with the help of James Madison, the first United States Constitution was drafted. There was much opposition from anti-federalists, people who were against the federal government getting involved, right? From anti-federalists who opposed the Constitution. stating that they did not want such a large new government. They didn't want the government to be so huge, so big. Now we have what, 50 states, 50, plus additional whatever. These were people who preferred how the government was currently ran under the Articles and tried to voice their concern against it. When it was proposed to the Articles of Confederation Congress, those are people who are in a meeting to do the debates, it was asked that it would be shown to the delegates that were elected by each individual state, and voted on by those people. Remember, for Congress, you have people who represent your state in Congress. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. I will go over that for the next chapter. That way I don't give you the wrong answer about how many people are in Congress and how many are in the House of Representatives. The first 5 states, 5 out of the 13, approved the Constitution with relative ease. They had no problem with it. However, it would be an uphill battle trying to convince the other 13 states to follow suit. Eventually, the new government would come into existence on March 4th, 1789, under the United States Constitution. Remember that date, March 4th, 1789 is one of the questions they're going to ask you at the end. When the first United States Congress met up, Federalists, those are people who supported the new laws, rejoiced in their success. Work would soon start to be made on new amendments or minor changes. Amendment means minor changes to the Constitution. These would be the Bill of Rights. That's what we're discussing right now, the Bill of Rights. Now, the first amendment of the Bill of Rights granted freedom of speech, press, assembly, to come together as a group, and the right to protest. That's the First Amendment. The Second Amendment granted the right to bear arms. The third stated that soldiers cannot commandeer any house, whether in peace or war. The fourth made it so no property could be seized unlawfully. The fifth protected people accused from a crime from being forced to be a witness. That means when you hear someone say, "Oh, I plead the fifth," that means you don't want to speak against yourself. I better shut up because what I say can be used against me. So the Fifth Amendment says, you don't have to speak to the police officer. You plead the fifth. You just shut up until you get your attorney. The sixth ensures a jury present at all criminal trials. The sixth talk about the criminal trials. You need a jury. The seventh makes it possible for juries in civil dispute. The Seventh Amendment has to do with the civil. Remember, there are cases where you could be found guilty in the criminal part of a trial, but then let's say you're innocent. In a criminal, they didn't find you guilty in a criminal trial, but you can still be held accountable financially in a civil trial. That's what happened with the O.J. Simpson case, where he was found not guilty in the criminal, but he was found guilty in the civil. He had to pay money to the families. The eighth made it so that no one may suffer cruel and unjust punishment. The ninth protects a citizen's rights from another citizen. The final and 10th Amendment states that any power not stated in the overall Constitution would be up to the states to decide. This is what I was saying about the coronavirus situation. It's up to the state, the governors, to decide if they're going to quarantine their state or not. It's not up to the president. Okay, it's not up to the federal government to shut down your state. All right. That's where the protection come in for each state, the 10th Amendment. These final changes to the amendments would take place from the start of Congress to September 25th, 1789. It ends September 25th, 1789. Remember, it started like March. These changes would all be pushed to the states 3 days later. So each state would get this amendment so they could start voting on it, or, read it, or whatever they're going to do with it. And thus the Bill of Rights, which ensured the rights of every American citizen, would be finalized for the United States. All right, question number 1. When was the Bill of Rights final version officially finished? The final version, I chose C, September 25th, 1789. Number 2, which of the following was the Bill of Rights not based on? I chose D. It was not based on the Articles of Confederation, because the Article of Confederation, it was there to only strengthen the Bill of Rights, right? Maybe you come up with a different reason, but I say B. Because they gave you English Bill of Rights and Virginia Declaration of Rights. Those two are really not a part of the answer, because those two work together. So the one that's not included, you have, when you're taking these tests, you'd use process of elimination. If the Bill of Rights go together, English Bill of Rights and Virginia Declaration of Rights go together, that means the other one that's not an option is B, Articles of Confederation. Which of the following conventions was the Constitution proposed? The convention, I chose D, Philadelphia Convention. What is the name of someone who was against the proposed Constitution? A, anti-federalist. Oppose, anti. Number 5. When would the new government under the Constitution come to existence? It came to existence, when did it begin? Came to existence March 4th, 1789. What is not guaranteed by the First Amendment? Out of all the choices, C, right to bear arms. Why? Because the right to bear arms is the Second Amendment. That's not the First Amendment. And that's all. And then the next subject, social study topic we're going to do is the 3 branches of government.